Hello, friends. This is the Connected Approach podcast, the world's #1 podcast for connected leaders. I'm Chris Curtin.
And I'm Amanda White. Welcome, everyone, to your warm embrace. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Amanda. So, what's top of mind for us to talk about today?
Today, what's top of mind is talking about the things that trigger us and really having first awareness of that in the first place. So, our topic is triggers.
Okay, well, you mentioning being aware of it, that to me is such a part of the struggle or the battle to then dealing with those triggers or setting them aside and being able to respond in a way that at the end of the day we want to respond, in a way that's
Right,
most proud or authentic and calm to us.
right.
When I find myself in a situation where I'm upset or I'm disappointed with how angry or frustrated I am with something, it can be several hours or days before I'm even saying, "Hey, wait a minute." There was that moment, there
Yeah,
was that stimulus, whatever that
right,
was,
right.
that I just coasted right through into the upset.
Yeah,
And I hate when that happens
I know.
because I'm
Well, I
not
think that's the
doing
first point.
yeah.
Is like not liking your response.
Hmm.
That's the first step in it and saying like I don't want to respond in that way. We talk about this work a lot as far as if you haven't done the work of self-awareness, you're just kind of going through life and it's like, you think back and a lot of times you're just like irritated or pissed off at we talk about the three emotions. You're either happy, sad, or pissed off, right? So first it's even catching that and saying, wait a minute, what is in this? And I really don't want to be responding in this way. It's just not how I want to be.
You and I have talked so much about the amazing sport
Mm-hmm.
of being in a triggered state.
Yeah.
And it's a sport that more than football, more than the UFC, more
Yeah.
than anything, there is a love affair with that sport of being in a triggered state.
Right.
And I feel it very personally when I either try to disengage from the sport or offer a timeout to the sport
Mm-hmm.
or offer a tranquil response or retreat from the sport within my life. And you and I have talked about this. I'd love for you to share your perspectives on that because it's just
Well,
interesting, even reflecting on it, that it truly it's not the American pastime. Maybe it's the
yeah.
world pastime, but certainly it is in our in the society I live in, and I'm in America. Seems to be a real familiar baseline for navigating life and for relating to other people and relating to the stimulus that are coming at you.
Yeah. Well,
Stimuli.
how does it make you feel? I think you started by saying, I know how I feel when I'm, away from that or whatever. Is it because when you get into what we call in quotation marks, like the sport, like sometimes you just have to like get into it and be like, rah, 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 like it's just that sport of banter, or I don't know, competition through like an argument back and forth or whatever, that it's a bit of um, a dopamine hit, when you get into that. but then you realize that it's like going nowhere, and the after effect is you just feel empty.
Mhm.
Is that what you were referring to?
I'm thinking about the word empty, and I'm trying to think how that best, or whether that best describes how I feel.
Mhm.
It's interesting you say empty. I mean, empty of all empty of all goodness and grace and gratitude, yes, and just whipped up into a fury. I mean, you know, from a very young age, I was an excitable kid, and so I think
Yeah.
that, you know, losing my temper was, you know, was something that, if not an everyday occurrence, you know, was something I'm sure all kids have to deal with temper. But
Yeah.
I'm saying, like, being fiery was something that was kind of a part of
Who you are, right?
who I
Yeah.
am. And so there's always that, um, that high wire act you're doing, because, you know, I don't want to lose my energy and emotion, and yet I want to be able to, express it in a way, and also feel my feelings in a way that's not, you know, for the destructive, or for the,
Mhm.
you know, for the worst of who I can be when I'm triggered.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Um, so I took improv classes
Yeah.
in
I love
Boston,
that.
and I'm a proud student of the Improv Asylum, which, for people listening and watching, is right on Hanover Street in the North End of Boston. So if you happen to
Mm.
be in Boston, you can do a couple of things on Hanover Street. One, you can go to the Improv Asylum, which is a great improv theater. Two, you can probably get the best cannoli of your life on the North End. It's the Italian
Sounds
section.
amazing.
Yep. And three, you could see where my mother was born. My mother was
Oh,
born on Hanover Street in the North End of Boston, and she lived there for a few years before moving to, um, uh, a different part of Boston, then ultimately out to the suburbs. And so I didn't learn that fact, oh, by the way, until long after I had studied improv for 2 years at the theater, probably half a
really?
block to where my mother was born. So I love that. But
Yeah.
anyway, in terms of improv class, um, we did an exercise once where you're in a circle, and in improv, everything is supposed to be reactionary. You're not supposed to be able to think it. You're supposed to be reacting to what's being presented to you.
Yeah.
And in improv, therein lies the parallel with coaching, because with coaching, you're just promising your presence with the other
Right.
person. And so that presence is so important in improv. And it's also very challenging in improv, because you don't want to be reacting. You want to be hilarious. You want to show all your
Yeah.
friends all the funny things you've thought about and how you're going to sort of bake that in. And yet that's not how it works. One particularly challenging exercise, and very, very, touching actually, was I was in an improv class, and you're in a circle, and they say, we're going to play the I hate game. You're going to be
Mm.
called to the middle of the circle. There are about 12 of us. And for
Yeah.
1 minute, you have to say, I hate. And you can't stop. If you take a breath, you are kicked out of the center of the circle, and you're going to have to go again at a later time, when you can just say, I hate, for a minute. So I hate this, I hate that, I hate this, I hate that, I hate this, right? And
Oh,
so whenever you're in
that
a
sounds
class,
painful.
yeah, one, because of the
Uh,
exercise itself, right? Because you're
yeah.
just going to have to be able to riff for a minute without premeditating what you hate.
Right.
And thankfully, the improv teacher said, but we're going to put a spin on this. Instead of I hate, you're going to have to say I love.
Really.
Because this person had done the I hate exercise before,
Yeah.
and it whips up such a hateful fury in the participants
Yeah.
that it is like the worst room of all time, because you're always in these kind of like little back rooms when you're doing these
Yeah.
improv exercises. It's like the most dark.
I would imagine that could
Yes.
get really
Ugh.
ugly. Yes.
Now, the I love exercise was not any easier than I hate,
Yeah.
because, you know, you're just going, you know, one at a time. And yet when each of us, 12 people, essentially strangers, not knowing each other,
Right.
stuffed into a small place in Hanover Street in Boston, you can try to foreshadow or try to premeditate your first five I loves. I love my
Right.
wife. I love my partner. I love my family. I love my dog. I love my home.
Yeah.
Okay, that was 7 seconds. Now you got 53 seconds for I loves.
Yeah.
And it was one of the most emotional exercises that any of us had ever done because you realize as you're just allowing this stream of consciousness to occur with I
Yeah.
love at the start, how many things you actually love and how many things that you would have in a more flowing conversation, you would probably say that you hated or that bothered you.
Yeah.
But in saying I love, and then these things coming out, I had a terrible commute at the time. I said I love my commute because I realized I really did love my 2 hour commute
Yeah.
sitting in traffic in Boston because it allowed me time to think, allowed me time to reach out to family members and on the phone and connect. And that's always struck me from a trigger perspective
Yeah.
because one, with an exercise, you can trigger people positively
Yeah.
and you can also generate positivity or love for something that, unless instructed to do so, you must say, I love 80
Yeah.
times in a row, that there is a lot more. You can trigger yourself positively.
Well, right. I mean,
And
that's
yeah,
the power of a gratitude journal or a gratitude practice, right? I mean, it's taking time to sit down and be grateful, which I mean, that in my mind kind of translates to all the things that you do love and are grateful for that you don't usually think about unless, you're like, I'm going to sit here for 5 minutes and write down all the things I'm grateful for.
mm,
And it really does change your thinking. But I think I love that exercise. I think we should like people should do that more. And I'm so
ready?
glad they changed
Set.
it from hate to love. I mean, how impactful.
In addition to the sport of just flying off the handle,
Yeah.
of just releasing the toxicity from a trigger, how do you recognize triggers live or as close in time to the trigger to divert it into the into the calm water as opposed into the rage against the machine?
That's where I'm really trying to do the work now is get it out of the sport. And I think there's different levels of triggers, right? So there's things that can just kind of like fire you up and it kind of does get more into a sport. But then I have and something that happened just recently where it was a trigger, but the powerful stuff was within me. And it was my ego or whatever that just went and I can immediately feel it and feel the impact. And for this particular trigger, and I think these are the ones that are the deeply rooted triggers where you could go into that sparring back and forth or even defending or whatever, but in this case I took it as because I want to do the work and I don't want to feel this way. I took it as an opportunity. First, I needed to like settle myself and just kind of breathe through it, if you will. Then I had to try and get really, really curious and quite honestly, self compassionate because I could feel my ego kind of coming up and saying things like, who am I to think that I could have gotten that? Or who am I to do this, that, or the other? And a lot of times it gets to a feeling of self worth as well. So triggers are a great opportunity if you're wanting to do this work of And when I say wanting to do the work, when you set your priority or your, kind of purpose in life to not always be fiery, maybe to change that kind of brand that was given to you and say, I don't want to feel this way and I don't want to get in a reactionary state of mind because it's not good for me, it's not healthy for me. And then to be able to catch it and really get into that curious, inquisitive mode to say, what is that? Like, what is that? Where is that rooted? And it'll take practice, just like any sport takes practice, right? It takes practice, and sometimes, like this recent one, I was like, wow, I need to get some sort of self reflection practice back in my daily routine because I'm not sure why that came up. But it was a big one. So those are the things that I'm thinking about, and that I work through, when I get triggered. Some of them are small and they're, and I can work through them quickly. And it was like, oh, okay, it was that, it was a conflict with the value or, whatever. But some of the bigger ones are ones that take a long time to try and figure out where they're stemming from. Do you have that variation in triggers as well? I mean, we all do, right?
Yes, yes, and I'm thinking about what you've just said. I mean, one is to be in touch so that you see it or realize it. Two is to use some physiology, breathing or
Right.
taking a breath to allow you to have that space. And three is to self-assess.
Right.
And I'm just repeating back what you
From
said,
a
but
self-compassionate way, right?
mm,
Not a critical path.
right, right. So that you're saying you're really treating yourself with the curiosity and generosity that you would give,
Right.
that we extend so much easier, so much more easily to
Uh-huh.
others
Yeah.
sometimes, where we're the last to deserve or receive our compassion or curiosity of what's coming up with me on this.
Right.
So I
Well, and I think
certainly
the other
feel
thing
that.
is too is, again, I always feel like this work that we talk about is the soft gooey stuff, right? It's like, I don't have time for that. And I call BS on that because it's like I think about not doing this work and just how much I'm missing or numbing or not experiencing, because of being in this state. Because when you're not practicing at trying to work through those triggers and those emotions, you're hijacked for who knows how long. And I I don't want to go through life not feeling, or just numbing or just not being present. And you think about this as a leader and in a work environment, you might be in a meeting and a trigger happens. You're completely derailed. You're not listening to anything else. You're not able to be creative and innovative and resourceful and, to show up in a way that is how most people want to show up, is to be a good leader, right? And so, as we always say, Chris, like, this is the work.
Hmm.
And if anyone is feeling like, I just don't have time for that, it's not me, it's the soft stuff. Okay. But depending on the path that you want to take and the potential you want to reach, you're going to get there sometime where you're like, all right, crap, like, now I have to work through this,
Hmm.
because I just feel so passionate about how important this work is.
Well, that's all fine and good for you, but I live in the real world.
Right.
I'm a I just see things as they are. That's a
Yeah.
typical reaction, right? Or, you know, I I understand that these slights will befall me more consistently than these good states.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a common refrain,
Right.
which
And how do you, because you're on this journey, right? Like, how do you respond to that? Or what do you offer as uh, feedback to those statements?
I get to decide. I
That's
get to
right.
decide
Yeah.
how I categorize these things because that's all I control
Right.
is how I react, how I, you're right. Is it a capital T trigger, one of the biggest
Yeah.
of all time? Or is it a small one? Or can I categorize them all in a place where I can kind of, react a little, yep, and be able to
Right.
then park it and choose to move forward with the thoughts and feelings that are really more important to me and my life and to what I'm trying to impact. So
Right.
that's how I try to think about that. It's not that bad things don't happen or won't happen or that wasn't a less than optimal set of circumstances. And
Yeah.
yet,
Yeah. Quite the contrary. I mean, there will be hard things. This is not about like shielding from hard things, it's how to move through them with more ease and flow so that you preserve yourself in a healthier way and you show up in a way that is more aligned with how you want to be, if that's what you want to be, right? And I think part of this too, Chris, is that we're sharing this from our experience, from the work that we're doing, the practice that we're putting into it. We are by no means, I mean, I'm sharing right now, like I am by no means there because it will be a forever practice and a forever peeling back, you know. Um, I am not in the business of trying to persuade or convince because everybody gets on that path on their own time, or they don't,
or they don't.
or they don't. And that's fine. But when you're ready, our warm embrace is here, right? To help maneuver through all of those rocky waters because it is hard stuff. But I tell you what, it's exciting. There's so much growth in that space. And it is liberating, so I'm at the point now where it's like, I mean, this recent trigger, I was like, whoa, that was that. I mean, immediately I called it out, like, that was triggering. And instead of like shooting back at whether at the situation or the individual, I mean, I did start getting into this, like, going down a path and looking this individual up and, like this whole, I don't know, defensive reaction because I was in a state of like fight or flight. But then again, it's like I'm like, what am I doing? I don't. This is a good like. It's not about this person. It's about me and what is it within me or my ego or my saboteur or whatever it is that is getting triggered or trying to protect myself from this, and how am I going to learn from this so I can, I mean, some of it is healing it to be able to detach and let it go. And so it actually, I'm in this state now where I get excited about it because I'm like, you know, ready to take it to the next level in my learning, um, which is huge growth in and of itself from where I started.
It's so important the way you were describing this conversation that we're having and our own journey that we're sharing with this podcast. It is not a teaching. podcast.
No.
It's not. It is. This is a pursuit
Yeah. Every
podcast,
day.
and what we're sharing with each other. It's interesting, as we publish these and share these. This is to talk about the pursuit
Right.
of of our own growth and the process that we take when our clients want to do this work, the
Right.
process we take with them, because it is intended, for me at least, when we talk about things, difficult things like triggers and how we respond to triggers, it is an accountability to say, hey, you're talking about this and you need to continue to pursue this. And
Yeah.
so, not that that's the reason we're having the conversation today, but just for our listeners to know that this is an everyday pursuit
Yeah.
to see our triggers, small t and big T, right? I
Right.
always think of the fast food example for a small t trigger, right? You sort of say, like,
Yeah.
sometimes it's so good here, this
Yeah.
coffee, this burger, whatever.
Yeah.
And when it isn't, you can be sort of triggered by that. Like, wait a minute, $8 for a cup of coffee and it's not even that good. I bet they were holding that coffee for me. Right. I mean, you can blow yourself up
Right.
with kind of the slights that you can perceive.
Yeah.
And so, one, to realize the triggers, and then two, to be able to calm yourself, and three, to be able to choose how you
Right.
want to react, or what you want to think about, to your values, to your work, to
Right.
on yourself, that you want to focus on going forward. Because to me, the biggest value of this topic, triggers,
Right.
to the steps we just talked about, is because we talk about time being our most precious, commodity.
Yeah.
And for this conversation, I would almost revise that a little bit to think about, like, the space in my mind. Because if the
Yeah.
space in my mind is full of, or even in any way occupied by, those external things that I'm triggered by, and then the rabbit hole or sport that I then go on,
Right.
that's occupying my mind space that I've promised myself I was going to use on other things, and that I
Right.
need for other things. And to
Right. It's
anyone
holding you
saying,
back from being creative and innovative and solutions focused, right? Exactly.
yes, and I can't be upset about the cold coffee. I can't be upset about
Yeah.
the guy who tackled me on the football field and had me call him uncle in high school, who I'm sure is listening to the podcast, by the way. I know
Of course they are.
he's a huge fan. His self-awareness and his love of other people, when he tackled me and said I'd be nothing, he's listening and judging. Um, but the more that we are engaged using our mind space, or filling our mind space with that rabbit hole, or with reacting to those triggers, it's true. And I can tell you, on the journey I'm on, the less space I have for focused decision making, and for honestly discerning, not judging, discerning ideas
Right.
and thoughts and concepts that we have. And it's not just in the business context, it's personally as well, about having the room to be grateful, having the room to be able to think of others, having the room to be loving,
Yeah.
of self and others. And then there's also tremendous business benefits as well, because when you're not constantly mired in those things that triggered you and bring you back to whatever that little child in us is, yeah, you're always going to be bullied. Yeah, you deserve to get the cold coffee. Yeah, you got to get them, whatever it is. You're
Right.
not thinking to yourself, hey, yes, I can pursue this new opportunity. Yes, we can do this. We have a very talented team that we're working with. Of course we can. You just can't do both. You
Right.
can't do both.
Well, and it's even as simple as one of the big things that I want for myself and how I show up is to be present. And I think back on this situation too of, I was having a wonderful, connection with a ex-colleague of mine and a friend, and it wasn't like her, it was just something that was shared, and it it took me out of being present and just like enjoying the last, 15 minutes that we were together. And then I felt bad afterwards because I was like, I just felt like that was the note that it was left on. And so for me, I'm like, crap, like I don't want that, because I want to, you know, enjoy every minute of this connection that I have together.
Mm.
And then you got to let it go, because I don't want to beat myself up. And it was a fine situation, but it's just the whole why it matters. It matters because I want to catch it and not have myself triggered by these things and figure this out. So I'm not losing these precious moments of being present with, my family or my friends or my, whoever, because we're like this a lot, right? We're on video, we're not seeing people as much, and so that time that you get is so important. But it'll continue to be work, and I hope this is a conversation that positively triggers some thoughts in others, or gets them to think about, well, even to recognize step one, even to first recognize what are the triggers and what is happening, and then to just start to inquire about that and get curious.
The precious now is something
Mm-hmm.
you and I often talk about. And what I often say or try to say now is that's why it's called a present, the present.
Yes, exactly. That's perfect.
Well, Amanda, thank you for our conversation today.
Thank you.
As for our listeners, we look forward to talking to you again soon. Until then, lead well, my friends.
And as always, stay true to you. Bye bye.